Hello and welcome to Wisdom and Productivity, the podcast of Dr. Efraín Martinez. I am a principal in search of wisdom and have found productivity to be a great tool for success. Today I have the distinguished honor of interviewing Katie Miglin, who is the Director of Curriculum and Instruction at TeachBetter. I had the honor and pleasure to meet her at TeachBetter 22 in person. What an utmost professional, admired by everybody, seeing everybody there. So I was like, I need to make sure that I interview Katie so I can learn where her wisdom and productivity comes from. Katie Miglin, who are you?
Well, my goodness, that is such the intro. Thank you so much. Well, like you said, my name is Katie Miglin, and I am a mom to two adorable, wonderful children, two daughters. I am married to an amazing man named Matt, and when I'm not the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, I'm an athlete, I am an educator, Christian, reader, kind of all your, extra things I like to do in my free time. So but yeah, I work for the TeachBetter team, and I oversee a lot of the projects, like the conference where we had the opportunity to meet, which was great. But then I also get to work a lot of our internal projects, things that we do in our online platform. And I get to work with schools all over the country and go meet teachers. So that's always something really fun, especially being an educator for so long. It's nice to be able to get back in the classroom and be able to work with teachers, get that energy from schools. I was an educator for 13 years, so it's nice to be able to work, in the schools again. So it's kind of every day looks a little different, and I really love that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Let me ask you a follow-up question. Can you tell us more about the importance of your faith in your life?
Yeah, so I have had my faith has been a part of my life, literally my whole life. I come from a very strong Catholic family, and so that was important for my husband and I to continue some sort of faith in our children's lives and our own lives. So we belong to a local Christian church, and it's really kind of just created that family in a town where I don't have any family. We live kind of far from my immediate family. So it's nice to have a church family and to have that faith that kind of keeps me rooted when things aren't so perfect, and how to just kind of lean on something else when I feel like I'm losing control. I'm a type A personality. So it's nice to have like something else that kind of keeps me rooted and remind me that there's a bigger purpose and a bigger power.
Thank you, Katie. So can you share with us your professional trajectory up to this point?
Yep. So I went to Illinois State University for both my master's and my bachelor's, and I was blessed to be able to stay in the same town and work in the school that I student taught in, which was really awesome. It was a great transition out of college. I was a classroom teacher for 13 years. I taught primarily middle school math, and that was my jam. I loved middle school. I loved, the attitudes, the smells, just all the things. I felt like it was such a pivotal point in a child's life, and that was really important to me to be a part of that. And in the last couple of years, I've been working for TeachBetter, and just recently I left the classroom to work with TeachBetter. So I originally started as the community events coordinator when I was still in the classroom, and I worked just kind of doing that on the side, which was really fun. But this year I had the opportunity to become the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. And I just decided I needed a change. I said I did not want to be a teacher that was, crabby and burned out, and I knew students needed better. So when I felt that God was calling me to a change, I just kind of jumped at it. And so here we are. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Let me ask you a couple of questions. You said that, did you teach at the school where you went? Did I hear that correctly?
Where I student taught. So,
where you student taught?
Yep. So I was there for a semester and then was able to get a job there.
I see. How do you feel in that experience from going to student teacher like in a way, I don't know you, but at least me, I made like, oh my goodness, also many mistakes. And going back to the same place, any recommendation or advice for those people who are on the trenches, who might be in that similar situation?
Yeah, I was really lucky. I was with a teaching team that just accepted me for who I was, but continued to push me to be better. So while I know I made a lot of mistakes early on, and I know that I grew a lot, I think just accepting that I was new, and I think it's sometimes hard when you're in those moments, when you're in your student teaching semester and you're just feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, to remind yourself that no one else at their point in their career did either. We all kind of started the same, and we struggled in the beginning. You figure it out as you go, and you continue to be open for growth. And I think that was where I was kind of at, was I knew that I had all the tools that I could to begin teaching, and I knew that my team was going to support me. So it actually was really good for me, because I wasn't this like new person, new face into a building. Like, they knew me for a semester. They'd watched me grow so much anyway. And so it almost felt like a family. They were like, hey, join us for this journey. So it was really, really helpful.
Nice. And this middle school teaching, what makes middle school students so special?
They are like mini adults in some ways. They love to tell you that, and they love to tell you that they can make all the decisions and they know everything. That's the stereotypical. They really are like mini adults. And, I think what I loved the most is one student, you could be helping like problem solve in your mind something that'd be very simple. Like, okay, well, how are you going to get a pencil today? And you could turn to the person next to them and have a whole on conversation about the new movie that came out, or, their soccer game. And you could just have kind of both ends within your classroom. And I loved that. And I loved being able to connect with them on so many different levels. And I was blessed to be able to be a coach and be involved in a lot of clubs. And so getting them to kind of see their growth in those areas too was just really fun. And they're just like, they grow up so much in those few years. It's so cool to see.
They do, absolutely. And let me ask you one more question. Working now at TeachBetter, I'm sure there are some people in schools that might be looking for something. This is kind of new, right? In education, I'm sure when you went to school, you never thought maybe that you would work, right? But like outside of a school, but with schools. So Can you tell us about that transition experience? What did you expect to happen? What ended up happening? What should the people from the outside know how it feels to work for an organization that work for schools?
So I think, there's a lot of people out there who are right now trying to figure out what's their next step. What are they going to do? And I would say I'm only about 6 months out, but I think my biggest advice is really reflect on what you want, because working with teachers is very different than being a teacher. And, we come to schools, and we're lucky enough that we work with schools continuously. So we are not a one and done company. We come in and we work for, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times throughout the year, which is great because we establish relationships. Not all companies do that, but also you might be working with them on a professional development day, not on a school day. So if you get a lot of energy from students, and if you, really that fuels you, then you have to kind of lean into that. If you really enjoy kind of the bigger picture and working at a higher level, then maybe that's your calling too. But that was something that took a lot of reflecting for me, was what really fuels my cup and really it gets me excited and helps me and kind of gives me purpose. And when I realized that I was okay with kind of stepping away from the students, then that's when I knew this was the right step for me. But that's not for everybody. So I think you really have to reflect. It's easy to point out all the things that are a problem, like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, my to-do list is long. But those things may not go away with just another jump. So being really mindful of what do you need every day. And, sometimes I still go over to my old school and kind of just hang out with students for a little bit just to kind of get some energy. But then at the end of it, I know I'm okay walking away right now. So I think you have to be mindful of what you need.
Great advice. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, Katie, like in Back to the Future, if you could go back in time to any of the positions you have held before, what will the Katie of today tell the Katie of back then?
Oh man, a lot of things. I think I'd have to sit down for a while with her. But I think for me, the biggest thing I struggled in the beginning was that vulnerability of thinking you had to know it all. And I really was nervous to sit in a meeting and not know, to, lead a group and not know. And there were a lot of things that I let my pride kind of get in the way of maybe making better choices. I remember I started a softball program one of my early years. We had just built a new building in our district, and I had transferred over there, and we opened the school, and I had to run the softball program, and we literally just had like a dirt field, and I didn't know a thing, and I didn't want anyone to know that. And so I think there were so many things that first year that I was like, oh my gosh, if I would have just asked for help, or if I would have just like reached out to someone. So I think just kind of reminding myself that it's okay not to know everything, and it's okay to let people know that actually, I might have been a better person in the long run.
Excellent. Not to know everything. Beautiful. Here, taking notes, learning from you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So reading books is such a luxury. If you had to gift one fiction book that is your favorite and one non-fiction book that is your favorite, what will those books be?
This is probably the hardest question you're going to ask all morning, I've decided. But fiction, I cannot narrow it down, but what I can say is anything by Kristen Hanna. She's a historical fiction writer, and I love being transported to a different time period and being able to just kind of be immersed in whatever culture existed at that time. So she does a lot of, just history stuff, which I really like. And then my favorite nonfiction that still resonates with me is Educated by Tara Westover. And it's kind of written like a fiction, which is interesting in itself, but she was not able to get an education and kind of talks about her journey as a child and wanting to be educated and wanting to go to school. And it just is a good reminder, as not only as a teacher, but also as a student, as just a person, that our education is a privilege and we make a difference, and that matters. And so I felt like it was just a good, humbling book. And it still is something that I just kind of remind myself of every once in a while.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Katie, who is or who are your biggest influences?
So I'm going to be honest. I kind of got my educational journey in a bubble because I was surrounded by quality educators. And, it's so interesting being removed from it because I don't think I appreciated it as much as I should have. But my early schools were filled with teachers who were innovative and passionate and really, really wanted to do right for students. And they honestly shaped who I was as an educator, because when you sit in a meeting and everyone around the table is just caring about students and caring about what's best for them and not caring about what the curriculum looks like, or, kind of sticking to some of those parameters, you can do some really powerful things. And so I definitely, when I kind of first think of people, I think, Sarah Jesse, she was a teammate of mine for years. Dana Kirby was a coworker of mine for years, but the one person who consistently stands out is Kathy Burbrick. And she's not on social media that much, so I can't totally give her a shout out, but she was one of my co-teachers for my early years. I student taught with her. She was a special ed teacher on my team. And what I loved about her is she didn't just follow the rules. And what I mean by that is she cared about students and their families wholly. And she challenged my thinking to be a better person and a better educator. And so there were so many times that I can remember us sitting and I'd be so frustrated with a student and I'd say, they should be doing this. And I saw what they brought in, and, just like I had these opinions, and she would be like, but you don't know what happened last night. And, they have a baby that's keeping them up all night, or maybe that's why they fell asleep. And there was just so many times that she would challenge me in such a loving way that made me feel like, okay, I can change, and I can be a little better. And I'm still good friends with her now. She has since retired. But just, she was like, she made learning fun. You know, there were so many days I would be just crying, laughing at the board teaching because she'd have an accent and she'd be walking around the classroom and that would be her way to engage, you know, some of our tough kids. And so it was, she just constantly made me reflect in such a caring way that she honestly was the most influential person I had ever come across, but also just kind of shaped me as a teacher and made me a better person.
Wow. How fortunate were you to have very good teachers, especially those that set the way for you to continue through that path. Thank you, Katie, so much. Mm-hmm. So, Katie, imposter syndrome is real. We all feel it. We feel like, oh my goodness, I'm not good enough to be there, etc. What have you done to deal with this?
In all honesty, it is something I battle with pretty often. So it's a common thing that I have to remind myself. But I think, you know, for me personally, I just really struggle to feel like I'm smart enough and, you know, good enough. I feel like I'm constantly surrounded by just amazing people, to be honest. You know, when I was a teacher, I would feel that way. I'd sit in a conference room and I'm like, wow, these people are so cool and so like good at what they do. And that's continued. You know, I sit in TeachBetter meetings or I go to schools and I'm just constantly in awe of other people. And while it's hard for me to, you know, remind myself that I'm okay, I'm worth it, I'm good enough, just like everybody else, I think I've had to really kind of just switch my mindset and really remind myself that, well, yes, I'm surrounded by intelligent, hardworking, amazing people, but that means I have room for growth and I can learn from them. And so rather than the negative self-talk of why am I here? You know, I'm not as smart as these people. I've really tried to just change my mindset to, I can learn something from someone else always, even if I don't agree with them, which, you know, that's sometimes a challenge when you don't agree with somebody, but just knowing that they offer something different from you and you can learn from them, that has been enough for me. And that has kind of helped combat the imposter syndrome, especially on those days where I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I in this room? Like, I don't know enough, you know? So it's been kind of a good shift for me to just be comfortable in my own skin, to know that I'm there for a reason. I can bring something to the table, but I can also learn from other people and grow with them.
Beautiful.
This podcast is a proud member of the TeachBetter Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
Would you say that this is something like, what do middle school children need to know? Because we live in an era where everything is immediate. It's a 10-second TikTok video that is edited. It's humorous. It makes you laugh. Maybe it makes you think, right? But then we have classrooms where the teacher might stand in front of the class and try to lecture. Like, what is it that students need to know in order for them to fight this imposter syndrome that they might not feel right away in school, but once they get to higher levels like high school or college or that first job, they might feel like, what are your thoughts?
Oh man, you know, it's so hard to narrow it down to a middle schooler, because there's times where I just feel like, oh my gosh, they don't know so much, you know, just hold on. I know I've sat with students and they have no friends or they feel so out of place. I'm like, just hold on, because your future has, you know, endless possibilities. And I think that was kind of the message I consistently would say to students is, this is just a moment in time. And whether that breakup feels like it's the end of the world or this class feels like it's the longest class of your life, this is just a moment and you have a lifetime ahead of you. And so, you know, couple that with also looking to what can you gain from others and what can you experience. You know, that I would always tell students when I would partner them in class, I would remind them, I'm not looking for you guys to become best friends. I'm looking for you to gain something from that person and just walk away a little bit better when when you're done. So when you have those students that are like, I don't want to work with such and such, and, kind of moan and groan. I'd remind them, well, I put you with them for a reason. And maybe the reason you don't see right now, but maybe you will at the end of the project. And just kind of telling them, you're only there for a short period of time. And you're going to survive, I promise. And so, at the end of the project, sometimes we'd laugh and be like, look at everyone survived their partners. Yay. And it's just kind of, just noticing those little moments that you can be a little bit better than you were 5 minutes ago. And that's what this is for. And so just constantly remind them of that. Because you're right. Those 10-second TikTok videos, man, they feel like they're life-changing, but they're just a moment of time.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I ask you because I ask teachers to give me feedback every December, a glow and a grow. Mm-hmm. What is working, what is not working. And one of the constructive criticisms were like, basically, you have to stop. This is a middle school. Mm-hmm. You have to stop telling us to make class more fun, because children need to learn that sometimes things are tedious and things take time and stuff like that. And I was like debating, is the person right? Are we both right? Are we both wrong?
Right.
Like if you had to go back to the classroom, mm-hmm. right? And knowing all of this, is there anything you would do differently from the get-go that perhaps you have learned outside of the classroom?
Yes. Yes. I think I would stop sweating the timelines and the structure as much. I'm very type A, as maybe you know this, but I'm very type A. I like a lot of structure. I like to hold the reins, have the control, all the things. And I slowly, after COVID, started to realize that doesn't matter. And I shouldn't keep doing that. And so, I was really only able to put it into practice for a short time before I left. But the little things, I was so worried about like, well, my bell ringer needs to be math related because I teach math. It's like, no, it doesn't. The idea is that they're getting engaged in class. You can do that a billion different ways. And so, just little things I would do, like, would you rather questions rather than a math question? Because guess what? Way more kids answer a would you rather question than they do an algebra problem. And just those little things, like making things funny and silly, but yes, still covering the curriculum. I'm not saying get rid of that, but there would be times that I would be teaching a lesson and I'd be standing there going, this is so boring. I'm so bored. How do they have any interest? And, just making it like a little bit more interesting, even if it's like, I'm going to make a joke out of this, or I'm going to use a funny accent, or we're all going to write in markers today, just those little tiny things that at the end of the day don't really matter, but maybe they bring a little bit more joy to your classroom. I think those are the things I would do more often rather than like those structured, it's Fun Friday. Those are the only days that we can have fun. Yes. I think I would just kind of absorb more of that.
That's a great advice. Thank you so much. Let me see here. Being successful includes being on top of your productivity, but this means different things for different people. How do Katie get organized and still live the life that you live?
I really focus on what helps me stay focused. So what I mean by that is my husband will tell you I have to have a clean house because it helps me focus. He could always tell when I had a stack of papers I needed to grade because I would do all the laundry and I would clean the whole house and probably organize a closet because I couldn't focus on anything else. So I just have now learned I have to have like the house has to be tidy. So I try to whenever, weekends or whatever, I try to like make sure everything's picked up and I create lists and I schedule things. So especially with this new role, in the classroom, it was different. I was structured by a bell schedule. So I knew I had about an hour in the morning to work, my prep periods, and then about 45 minutes after school to work. And so it was like, well, what can I get done in those timeframes? Now, I might have a meeting in the morning and then I've got 2 or 3 hours where I've got to knock out a lot of projects. And so I've tried to really be intentional with my time and schedule things. So if I know a project will take a certain amount of time or maybe it'll take a lot of time. Then I'll say I'm only working on it for this chunk, and then I'm going to move on. Everything from like working out to doing devotionals, like all of that, I try really hard to be intentional of when am I going to accomplish that. And I just do it the night before. So I'll like, before I fall asleep, I kind of look at my calendar and I'll, say, okay, I notice I've got a big gap of time at this section. That's when I think I'm going to try to get a workout in to give myself a break, or I'll take the dog for a walk. And so I just try to kind of be mindful of like, what time do I have, and using that rather than focusing on, oh my gosh, I have so much to do and so little time, because that was pretty toxic and it wasn't helpful to me. And I was finding myself being less productive. So kind of just switching the mindset.
Tell me more about your list. Is it a simple post-it with list? How do you? I know it's very geeky, but it's about productivity. Like,
right.
What would that look like?
So I usually create lists and I categorize them. So I serve on a couple non-for-profit groups as well, and so I will structure my to-do list based on what group I'm in. So I'll say like, this is my TeachBetter to-do list. And then I've got my home to-do list, and I serve on a softball board. So I kind of just structure it that way so that I know, okay, I've got a meeting coming up that's specific for this category. Let me make sure I've got everything on that list done. I also, right in front of my desk, I have a whiteboard. So any big goals I put on this whiteboard right in front of me, just to keep myself focused on what are long-term projects I want to make sure to accomplish, or things that might require sustained energy. Maybe I need to check on them every day. So those are like right in front of my face. And anything that's kind of quick, I put on a Post-it, because I can't handle a desk full of Post-its. So if it's something like a quick reminder, like, don't forget to schedule this appointment, I'll put that on there, knowing within 24 hours it'll be removed. But yeah, I typically put it in a notebook and have kind of just a notebook with all my different lists. My husband will tell you there's lists all over downstairs too. So
good. And can you tell us about, for those that don't know, what is a devotional, and how this supports what you do?
So I try really hard to do a daily devotional, which is just taking some time for prayer. And that has been very important to me throughout most of my life, to just take, even if it's a minute. Like sometimes, the day starts off where you feel like you're running from the second you get out of bed. But I try just to at least take a few minutes just to kind of center myself and have a few minutes of either prayer or read the Bible or read something inspirational. And sometimes it's religious and sometimes it's not, but just something to kind of focus myself and give me that pause.
Beautiful. Is there any, if you had to open a Bible and pick a story that perhaps represents more for you, or what would that be?
So the one that constantly is reminded to me is it's a story of Mary and Martha, and Jesus comes to visit, and I'm going to mix up the names now because I'm on the spot, but one of the women stops and she's intentional about her time with Jesus. And she really just focuses on, to kind of soaking in that moment. And the other one is like, oh my gosh, Jesus is here, and starts cleaning the house and cooking and doing all the things. And I am often that person where I'm not great at, being intentional in the moment and really listening. And so that story constantly resonates with me, because even when we have friends over, I'm wanting to stay in the kitchen and make sure that everyone's fed and happy. And sometimes I'm not great at sitting and just being in that moment, even with my kids. And so I try to remind myself to just like soak in all the little moments, and the dishes can wait, the dinner will get cooked. And, you don't always have to be wrapped up in the to-do list, because I'm really good at worrying about the to-do list and not always about those positive little moments. So.
Beautiful. Let me ask you one more follow-up question in terms of productivity. What advice would you give to someone who, like you, who was working in a school setting, and now you're working in this like hybrid place here and there? What advice you have to give in terms of organizing yourself? And I'm sure the mindset of people might think, oh, you're home, oh, you're just like, and you might be busy. Like, what advice, what lessons have you learned?
I've learned you have to do what works for you, and ditch it if it doesn't work. And I think that is sometimes very challenging for people to kind of acknowledge, like they can Google how to get organized. Literally the other day, I was like looking at how to do something in my kids' toy room, how to organize. And there's those things that work great for a lot of people, but they may not work for you, and that's okay. And if it's not going to work, it's definitely not going to stick. So whether you're the person that wants 100 to-do lists on your desk and all the little Post-its, or you're the person that needs it in a, clean little notebook, it doesn't matter, because it's for you. And that's the important piece. And if it's not something that's working for you, then you have to ditch it and come up with something else. And so, I worked with teachers who had their plan book on a computer, and that's awesome. Great. Good for you. But that didn't work for me. And so I was the person that was in the office requesting a paper, plan book, and, making everything on paper, because that's what I like. So again, just kind of reflecting on what do you want to get out of it? How do you want to be productive? And just kind of focusing on what you need, not necessarily what works for everybody else.
Awesome. Thank you. Katie, I noticed a couple of your blogs. Would you say that writing is something that you want to develop? Or do you work on? Is writing your thing? If so, how do you get organized from an idea to an actual post?
So, total honesty, I really don't like writing at all. Writing has not been my strong suit, in my opinion. So, Carrie Pitstick is in charge of our blog department. Love her. She is the sweetest person. Early on, she asked if I would write a blog, and I avoided her for months. And I was like, Carrie, I don't think our blog department really needs a blog written by Katie Miglin. I think the numbers will go down. But she was so sweet and really just motivating. And she's given me a little bit of confidence to, write a few things. But for me personally, I have to write something that I'm passionate about, because otherwise it's just not going to work. I have to be interested in it, because I really struggle I'm more of a verbalizer. I like to talk. You can put me on podcasts all day long, but to put it into words right. So I think structuring it into putting in words, I just overanalyze it, I think, is really what it comes down to. So not my favorite. I will do it. I'm happy to do it, especially if people are nice and sweet like Carrie is. But yeah, not my favorite. I'd rather be on a podcast like this.
I asked because I also started as a blogger. And I can talk forever, but writing, like after the second word in that sentence, I'm questioning, is this correct, right? And it loses the essence.
Yep,
awesome.
Same.
Katie, any other interests that we should know about that you do and we don't know?
You know what? Honestly, I'm a very open person. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't like what you see on my Instagram or Twitter. That is me. I pride myself on not being fake. I'm not a fake person. I'll put everything from our kid having a temper tantrum to the, most beautiful Christmas picture ever, and everything in between. So, but yeah, I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I've been given in the last couple years, especially this journey that I'm on with TeachBetter. Being together at the conference, I was just blown away by our family and our TeachBetter community. And, knowing people virtually is so cool, but knowing people in person just is such a difference. And it was definitely, I felt like God was calling me to be in those moments and just kind of soak that all up. And I'm so, so grateful for everything. And I'm just excited to kind of see where this journey takes me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one more follow-up question, I promise, is this. How did it influence you as a teacher when you became a parent?
Oh, man. So I think it took a couple years, because, when you have babies, you're just in survival mode and there's not as much time to reflect. But I think once we had, our daughter was in school or like in daycare, I think I had a different appreciation for teachers and just a different perspective. whether it was whether I thought something was right or whether I was like standing firm behind the teacher and saying, there's been times my daughter has come home and I'm like, I know that's not what your teacher said. I know that's not how that went in class. I just think it just gave me some different perspective. And my husband is a son of educators as well. And so he has, kind of had the educator lens with him. And so it's nice for us to have that in our background as we raise her and to remind her, when she tells us about a crazy thing she did in class, I remind her, you're one of 25 students, Harper. Would you feel that way? Would you feel okay doing that in mommy's classroom? And it's just been good conversation. And whether or not things have necessarily been changed, I don't know, but it's just been a good, different lens to see things through for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This has been, oops, my microphone. This has been such a great conversation, Katie. I'm so excited. I almost messed with the microphone. Anything else you would like to share with the listeners of the show?
No, just thank you and keep growing and learning and keep listening to more podcasts.
Oh my goodness. It has been a luxury to have you here, Katie. I feel so grateful. Thank you so much. I hope that you have a fantastic Sunday.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Wisdom and Productivity, the podcast of Dr. Efraín Martinez.
Chulo.
And I love that production. Chulo out.